Hi, my name's Glen and I just want to tell you about my latest book, Get Your Hopes Up. But first of all, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and who I am. I actually originally grew up in Queensland and about 7 years ago moved to Sydney to expand my company, The Oxygen Factory, into New South Wales and now throughout Australia and New Zealand. But when I was growing up in Queensland, when I was in year 12, I was actually the fastest in Queensland for the 100, 200 and 400 metre sprint events. When I was in year 12, I actually ran 10.6 for the 100, 21.8 for the 2 and 48 flat for the 4. I'm actually qualified to go to the World Junior titles, which are in Seoul, Korea. I was training with Kathy Freeman and Jai Tarima, and as a 17-year-old, my whole aim, my whole goal was obviously to represent Australia at the up-and-coming Commonwealth Games and Olympic teams. And making the World Junior team at 17 pretty much set you up in a position to actually achieve that feat. One day while I was out on the track, I suddenly started to experience some fairly severe cramps in my stomach. I was later diagnosed with an incurable condition called ulcerative colitis. I lived at home shut up for 5 years, got put on a disability pension. Then at 22 years of age, I read Nelson Mandela's book, Long Walk to Freedom, and I got so inspired by his story that I took the $2 that I had and I built a youth centre in Queensland, won Young Australian of the Year in 1998 for Queensland Community Service. Then schools, companies, and now even NRL teams started asking me to come in and share my story. I now speak in about 300 high schools, around about 100,000 teenagers every single year. The session that I run, I guess, the most in high schools is called Get Your Hopes Up, which is based upon this book. We've got some great stories and testimonials from students about it. I was at Holy Cross College Ride here in Sydney, and a young boy comes up to me after the end of my session. He says, "Hey Glen, I feel so motivated after this session. I want to make my dream happen." I said, "Awesome, son, what's your dream?" He said, "I want to race V8 supercars." I said, "That's fantastic, son, but you know there's only one problem with that? That dream's a little too small. You need to dream much bigger than that." He said, "Okay, I'll race Formula 1s then." I said, "Awesome." He writes to me 3 months later and says, "Glen, it's impossible." I said, "Don't tell me it's impossible. I only tried for 3 months. Now go out and make it happen." He writes to me 6 months later while he's in year 11. He says this, "Glen, you'll never believe this. 3 businessmen saw me race go-karts. They think I've got potential. They're now willing to give me $140,000 while I'm in year 11. Then give me another $140,000 when I go into year 12. He writes this. He says, "When he came to my school, it totally changed my perception of life. I've applied what you said to my race in and went out and won the most competitive race of the year." He said, "It's safe to say that none of this would have happened without your advice." This is Christian Lindborn, Rookie of the Year, New South Wales Formula Ford 1600 Championship. I get thousands of emails telling me that students, their grades have gone from this point to this point, made state teams, playing for European soccer teams, but the ones I love the most are this. This girl wrote to me on Facebook and she said, "Earlier this year I had a very severe episode of depression in which I was twice admitted to hospital. While staying there, my dad came and gave me your book. At the time I was having a lot of difficulty with concentration and accepted only out of politeness. But when I began to read it, I actually just couldn't put it down. I finished reading it within a couple of days with the new realization that I had a bright and hopeful future." And then she says this, she says, "After reading the book, I met a girl in the ward. We started having a chat and she told me her deep desire to end her life. She was convinced she was not going to live past 16. I told her about your book and how much it impacted me, and I offered it to her that night. She said she didn't put it down until morning. The next day when I saw her, she put her arms around me and said, 'That book just saved my life.' I know these tools and strategies can help any young person, or for any adult for that matter, live a more hope-filled life." So guys, thank you so much for giving me this time. Take care and have a phenomenal day.